So my topic is very new to me as well to speak about dance as a social facilitator. I think the first thought that came to my mind, why are we all here today? Why there's a dance conference? This week alone, Chennai sees 3 dance conferences. Do we have music conferences? Do we have painters conferences? Do we have sculptures meeting? We do have painters and sculptors doing exhibitions in galleries to sell their art. They don't come together to talk topics that concerns them. We have symposium where textile industry meets together to talk about technology of the craft. But dance conferences seem to be something that is a bit different in the performing arts industry. So it's already facilitating people to come together, and I think that's where I would like to start. The power of performing arts, especially dance, for me is seen as we all know, is called the Purna Kala. Dance is known as Purna Kala because it brought music, it brought literature, it brought many things together. But today it has expanded its role. So a dance performance, a production, has musicians, scholars, researchers, costume designers, visual artists, light designers, stagecraft designers, technicians, a whole lot of them, copywriters, dramaturs. We have a whole list of people who actually come together to produce what a single dancer or an ensemble that actually then tries to communicate that to the audience. So dance, compared to the other performing arts, maybe we can compare immediately with music performance. Of course, music also has a few facilitators coming together, but dance has a large scope and a large number of people involved. So I think this itself says that it already starts there. It already starts to bring people together and to bring ideas together. So finally, when the end product is consumed by the audience, one never knows where that spark, where the idea actually came and what was the end results. So a dancer, a choreographer would have had a thought, but what you see on stage is a contribution of everybody's thought that's coming together. And so that's something that we sometimes underestimate. Dance provides opportunities. So it provides opportunities to appreciate cultures. So whether you are a Bharatanatyam dancer traveling the globe, or a Bharatanatyam dancer even watching something on YouTube, you immediately are affected by the culture that art is showing. And that's another power of dance. So dance kind of symbolizes, iconizes a particular culture. So when you see a ballet, or let's even look at Indian cultural dance, classical dance. When you see Odissi, you will have imagery of the land. And when you see Mohiniyattam, you have the imagery of the land. So it starts to give you, to appreciate different cultures, understand history. So the way that the dance repertoire is structured, or a new work that's been created by dancers, there's a historical element to it. The history of the evolution, history of nations, history of mankind, is all embedded in that narrative. Learn about anthropology. That's my favorite topic. So through dance, I see that many dancers start to learn about human life, about a particular tribe or a nation, how they live, what they value in their system, and what they eat, what they wear, what they read, what they sing, and of course what they dance. So that's a huge window that opens up to look into that side of human life through dance. To appreciate religious beliefs. So that's another huge thing that's taken for granted. So when you are performing to a foreign audience, you're actually bringing them your faith, your religion into the performance. You may not be the saint, you are not Tyagaraja, but by performing a Tyagaraja Kriti, you're actually sharing the belief of the land that you represent and you come from. And similarly, when you watch some of the performance, you can actually see their beliefs coming through. And finally, this is a long list, so I just put a few. Appreciate languages. I think we don't have to go far. As a Bharatanatyam dancer in Tamil Nadu, you want to do a Telugu composition, Sanskrit composition, you have no choice but you dwell into the language. And then language opens up so many things that are layered behind that mere words or text. So dance provides the opportunities for all this. And it's really amazing that this art form is already being created to facilitate and what we can do for it. Dance as a soft power. Now this is something it's been spoken very much around the world today, and dance as a cultural diplomacy. Now I sit on a couple of government-related arts committees and boards in Singapore, and we have been looking at what India has done with dance. And we actually wanted our government, or we are in dialogue with our government, to try to follow that model, right? So the independent India, when it came out, the outside world never saw Taj Mahal. There was no Google. They never saw Bharatanatyam temple. There was no way they could go and browse the internet. But they knew Yamini Krishnamurti. They saw Sangyukta Banigrahi. They heard Ravi Shankar everywhere. And they thought that's India. And to many people, that's still India. So India used the soft power of art as cultural diplomacy to open up dialogues with countries. And even till today, and this is what our conversation with the Singapore government is, even today, to this date, an Indian Prime Minister delegation always has an artist in the troupe. Not many countries do that. Even as recently in Singapore, we had the government delegation come to celebrate 50 years of Singapore and India, and they brought Kalakshetra team to perform as part of the official event. So it's something that's, maybe we took it for a ride, and the birth of ICCR, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, was born because of that. So it's not just a mere opportunity to practice or to perform, but it was used as a very strong soft power, and India's done well with that. Freedom movement. We have, I think, we have a very young audience here. You can ask your grandmothers how they saw Aduvome by Kumari Kamala. That was a famous song that was even played even before movies could start. It came in a movie, but then they would play it during the freedom movement when India was trying to become free from the British rule. And her dance was used as a very, very strong facilitator to open up minds and people to feel. And Bharatiyar's words came live through those dance. And of course, music played a part too. Unity in diversity. So we today have seen dance was able to bring together, which was discussed in a recent music conference that I attended. It's why are Hindustani musicians and Carnatic musicians still look at them as aliens. There are Jugalbandis, but it's still a Jugalbandi. It's not a Sahrdaya there. They still play their craft. But bringing together Odissi and Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi and whatever has been happening for a long time, and it happens quite easily. It happens more naturally. There is no forced bringing together. So to appreciate the diversity and to see the commonality, dance has enabled more than music. And finally, education. I think that was just now touched upon by Anjana and the other speakers, how dance is used to not just educate about dance, but dance goes to educate the society. And the word Kathak comes from Kathakar, the people who told the story. So all dancers are storytellers. We tell the narrative, we tell what the society has to remember, has to know, has to be warned, and to sustain that dialogue. So the dancer's responsibility lies there too, because we are given the opportunity to tell the story and take it forward, and that's been already given from education. So I'll just share, before I finish off, 2-3 experiences. So working with other cultures, especially I had worked with the Cambodians, the Indonesians and the Thais in creating some productions. And what it brought about, it's what I was trying to share. So my first example will be Angkor, where we produced a story on Angkor Wat. And the background for this was building of the Angkor temple complex. For those of you who are not familiar, Angkor is the largest Hindu temple in the world, and it's the largest place of worship in the world. So it's bigger than Sri Rangam, bigger than Vatican, bigger than Mecca. So it's the largest place of worship. And so why would a land far, far away, removed from India, build a large temple complex for a Hindu belief? So that was the question. And what was the collaboration with the Indians? Obviously, it's very clear that the communists didn't wake up one night and say, let's do Mahavishnu as our main temple. So there has been collaboration. So what did bring these people together? So that was the background for this production. So the story was about the King Suryavarman II, who actually built it. And through research, we found out that he had a guru called Divakara Pandita, who actually came from India. He was the royal advisor for the court of the king. Like any kingdoms, there will be always a Rajaguru. So he was a Rajaguru. And there was evidence of a dancer artisan who actually came from Chola Nadu, who influenced this whole story. So that itself, kinds of brings to the topic that I've been given today. So there was this dancer who facilitated to build the temple, if I put it so plainly. It's such a huge impact, but when you look at what the history says, it took a dancer to get this king to build this grand monument in a foreign country, and it still stands today. Not the Rajaguru. The Rajaguru had all the knowledge. He had everything in his hands, but it took an artist to actually convince the kingdom to build this temple. So that's what we found out working on this project and so forth. Recently, we did with the Indonesians the Ramayana based production called Anjaneyam. The background to this was Ramayana from Hanuman's life, and it was a collaboration with the Indonesians. So here what was interesting is how the narratives are very same, yet very unique, and how it can bring people together. So Valmiki Ramayana is the Adi Kavya, has been referred in the Sanskrit poetry world. It's the first version of the Ramayana, written by Valmiki as told to him by Sita. So direct from the from the heroine of the epic. And there is a Javanese Ramayana in Indonesia, written 810 BC, and it is actually same version of Valmiki Ramayana. It's called Kakavin Ramayana, written the same meter of the Sanskrit words, but in the Javanese language. So it's very interesting to see that and it predates Kambar, it predates Tulsidas, it predates many other versions of Ramayana. And it's again not a translation, but inspired by Valmiki Ramayana. And it's also called the Adi Javanese Kavya, the first Javanese language Kavya written. So what did it facilitate? So this was facilitated not because they thought they would like literature. So why they wrote Kakavin Ramayana? Why did the Javanese decide to write their own version? Because they needed it for their performing arts. And their performing arts at that time was the wayang kulit, or the leather puppetry. And the leather puppets had to move, and they needed text. They needed something to be sung. So they wrote this Ramayana. So it was the dance of that time. Today, the Javanese dance follows the puppetry movement. So if you watch the characters dance, they're actually imitating the movement of puppetry. So puppetry is their inspiration for their dance move. So it took dance again to actually create this epic, to facilitate this conversation. And Ramayana, why is it very popular in Southeast Asia? I may take the liberty to say even more popular than India, right? In India, yes, the learned people, the scholars, the artists all know Ramayana very well, but may not be remembered every day. Whereas every day, Indonesia and Thailand and Cambodia celebrate Ramayana. They celebrate by names of the children they keep even today, and their monuments, their performing arts. Because Ramayana characters became the social conscience of society's moral conduct. So Sita epitomizes something even to a young Indonesian child, and the character of Hanuman represents something to somebody in Thailand. So it became the social conscience of the society, and that is what facilitated through dance, because the dance medium needed a narrative depict on Ramayana, and today they still continue to perform and brought this together. So this is something that we could see that happen through the work of the dancer. So just sharing some pictures. My last one is new work that we have done, and Apoorva, thank you for asking me to speak today, because we premiered it in Chennai last evening. So we had this production which is totally different from a usual Bharatanatyam. That's not about the gods, no goddesses, no epics, no heroines. We talked about the refugees, and we presented in Mylapore last night, in the heart of the cultural capital of Chennai, at Bhavan. And the background to this is about the plight of the refugee, inspired by the poems of UN refugee. UNHCR published a book called The Book of Poems, written by refugee kids all over the world. It was a Canadian run project, and under 12 years old kids have written poetry from their own life's experiences, and they come from all over the world. And that is what was the main inspiration for the performance that we premiered last night in Chennai. And of course we translated, it was, the poetry was read by Niranjan Bharati, Mahakavi Bharatiya's Ellu Peran, and he wrote a Tamil version of it, and we used that as the main narrative. Of course we had other poetries as well, but it talked about the emotional plight of the refugee, not the physical alone. And for us it was a very daring move to come to Chennai to present this. We already premiered it in Singapore. We had a very good reception of it, but come to Chennai we were a bit concerned, and that too we were programmed in a typical Sabha environment. We had a whole Margam, and we had Charu Kesi Varnam by Lalgudi performed by a dancer before we went on stage, and the mood was set, and then we had to shock the audience with a different mood. But the experience that came of yesterday's premiere is what I just wanted to share. Basically, it opened up dialogue. So we finished our performance 9. It took us 11 p.m. to get out of the building. We had so many from the audience who came to dialogue, and that's something I never have seen before. People will say, "Ananarukku," they'll walk away, or they will say, it was all about my art. Come and see me, come and see me, come and see me dance. Wow, your Thirumanams are fantastic. Your choice of music was great. That's what we keep hearing as dancers. But yesterday, the people talked about, oh my God, there's all this suffering in the world. There's all these emotions that people go through. We have taken it for granted. And they talked about that subject. The dialogue, yesterday the audience came to talk to us. Nobody was talking about our craft. Of course, we executed some jatis, we were executing things there. It's a Bharatanatyam performance, but nobody talked about the art. They talked about what was the message. And I think that is something I see a huge opportunity for dance, to actually take and talk about social causes and people will relate to it. And today, my Uber driver who actually sat in yesterday's show, 23-year-old guy, he told me, can you come to my village and perform this? Because all my friends who are 20-something don't want to watch Bharatanatyam. Avanga varamatanga sir. Ana idukku varuvanga. They will come to watch this. Because they are reading. I said, why? Why would they watch this? It's still Bharatanatyam. He said, no, because we are reading in the papers, we are listening on the radio, we are watching on TV. We just heard the Rohingya Bangladeshi crisis. So my friends will come. So I think as dance we have a huge opportunity, and this was an experiment that we did, and yesterday's reception was something that we didn't expect, and that gives us confidence. And I think for me to conclude this, dance opens many doors of possibilities, and I think it's up to us whether we are ready to take it. And we don't have to dilute the art. So yesterday in Agadi performance, we didn't do anything that's not in the grammar of Indian classical dance, because the dancers are trained in that language of Bharatanatyam. There was no Kathak or any movements there or any contemporary movement. The contemporariness for me is the ideology and what the society talks at that time. Tanjore Quartet, when they created the Margam, it was contemporary. That's what the society needed at that time. And today is the relevance of it. And I just wanted to, Apoorva, take one more minute. The question about should we dance in crisis? I think I was a refugee long ago in a camp in Sri Lanka, and we had about 2,000 people in the camp. And after the 3-4 days that went by, we were there for about 4.5 weeks in a camp, and people started looking for, can anybody sing? Can anybody perform? Can anybody do theater? Because people need to heal, and arts actually help. So I was in a refugee camp, and that time I was very young, and probably I only knew 3 or 4 repertoire items that I can perform confidently, and I was made to dance the same thing every night because people needed to heal themselves. So art has a healing. So when Chennai had floods and when people had to heal, I think art had a large role to play, and I was one advocate that we should not be cancelling any shows. Even if 5 people turned up, they turned up because they wanted to have that. It's not about the quantity, right? It's about the quality of what happens. So art has that power of healing, and especially dance. And yesterday in our Agadi, we used these famous words of Bharatanatyam, Tumbam Nerugayil Yaladutini Inbam Seka Mataya, and Pandai Nattamal Kutin Morainal Adi Kata Mataya. So it's something that, and today, if you know, there are many refugee migrants, Sri Lankan Tamils who live all over the world, and they are the foremost advocates of organizing festivals and promoting Indian classical dance because Tumbam Nerugayil. That is the evidence for them. So art has that power, and it's for us to use it. Thank you.